Hey everybody, I got a new airplane today and I thought I'd make this video to see if I could do this the way Spectrum wants you to do it. Um, it's a 1.3 meter Valiant. Um, I've been flying RC for like 60 years and I ordered this plane just in case somebody wanted to fly someday and I could let them try it. Um, I've been programming the AS3X safe receivers for 6 or 7 years. The last 4 or 5 years, I've been programming safe. So, anyway, I thought I would do this the way Spectrum, I guess, expects a beginner to do this. I just want to see how close or how much simpler they've made it compared to having to create a new model and go through the manual and do it. So we're going to create a new model here and use Spectrum's um, config files that are available on newer transmitters and from the internet. So going to select a BNF and it's an E-flite, and there's the Valiant right there. Okay, so now let's figure out where they put it. And let's see, I guess I need to activate it. And I'm going to lower the channels down so that we don't see so much garbage. I'm going to set it to 8, I guess. Nice round number. And I'm going to put it into my YouTube category. So we'll get out of here. And so let's see how well they did. Notice the timer set to 5 minutes. I think that's an indication that this is the default that the transmitter has. It's not the time that a Valiant would need. So I suspect they didn't set that to anything special. So normally when you create a new model, the first thing you need to do is go into aircraft type and make sure the wing type is correct. Well, this is not correct because a Valiant has flaps. And yeah, you can use the flaps without telling it has flaps. Channel 6 normally has switch D assigned to it, so the D switch will work the flaps, but you're not going to have the flap to elevator mix that they call for in the manual. In the manual, they tell you set this to one aileron, one flap, meaning one channel for aileron, one channel for flap. So you would select this one. According to the manual, they say do this. All right, so now what else do we have? Let's check timers. And it's set for 5 minutes, of course. And just look at timer alerts. Now, this is kind of one of my things. Whenever you create a new model in Spectrum Transmitter, the timer start and stop announcement is always turned on. I always turn them off because it bugs the heck out of me whenever people open the throttle, close the throttle, and it goes timer start, timer stop, or beep, 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 beep. So I inhibit these. But this is personal preference. All right, so now we go down here and the default of the transmitter, Well, it's not set to announce every minute down. I don't like to hear every minute down, but it's set for tone. Now, this config file that I loaded is a ISPM, which is for an IX type transmitter. I'm not sure what the NXs use. Maybe they're NSPM. I'm not sure. I've never had an NX. I've always had a DX until I got this one. So at 1 minute to go, I want it to say, and it's not even enabled. So I'm going to do this. So where is timer? Time remaining. Okay. And so there it is. Okay, in 30 seconds, I want it to tell me when 30 seconds. And 20 seconds, I don't want anything. And at 10 seconds, I want it to tell me. And there's nothing there. And once again, you got to go to macros and timer, time remaining. And was that it? Yep, that was it. All right, and then 10 seconds, I want to count down 10 to 0 or 10 to 1. And macros again, go to timer, remaining time, click OK. And then expiration, I want voice and medium vibe, let's say. All right. And every minute over, I want it to tell me that I have gone 1 minute past the expiration time, so forth. But this is personal preference, like I say. So they didn't set it to their personal preference. They left it all up to you. Okay, so audio events, switch change reports, there are none. So you need a announcement for the different gyro settings. You need an announcement for throttle cut. You need an announcement for the flaps, the rates. So they didn't set up any of these. They left it up to you. Flight mode setup is unnecessary and it's not changed, although I put the flight modes on the D switch so that I can trim the airplane in each position of the flaps, but that's kind of advanced. Channel assign. Let's see what they did on channel assign. That's important. So switch A is assigned to channel 5. That's normal. Channel 6 is NA because the flap system is enabled. Channel 7 is on switch E, and E is on the right side. I never use a switch on the right side when I'm in the air because switch H is throttle cut, and I don't want to accidentally kill the motor. So I'm not sure why they put switch E on channel 7. And then, of course, the rotary knob's on 8. So I wouldn't use this switch myself. If this is for the gyro, I would put it on switch C because my dual rates is B. All right, so that's pretty much it for that. Now, model adjust is where you set your servo setup and everything, and reversing. Nothing is reversed. Of course, a bind and fly, you don't want to reverse anything on a bind and fly because they do it in the receiver. Servo travel is all set to 100%. That's good. You don't want to turn these down. I see people turn these way down and it just kills the resolution of the radio. Sub trim on a smart receiver, you can use sub trim. On an AR-636, you're not supposed to, and you shouldn't. Speed is all set to normal, and actually the flap should be set to 2 seconds. So, okay, that was fairly normal. Dual rates. All right, the dual rates, there's not any, but in the manual, it says that the high rate should be 100% and the low rate should be 70%. Well, they didn't do that for you. So like I say, what I would do is I would use switch B, and for position 0, I use low rate, so I would set these to 70, like the book says. And for high rates, it's 100. And for the other position, it's 100. You've got 3 positions, but you only need 2 rates. And then elevator, change the switch first. Put it on B. I put all of my rates on one switch. I don't want to flip one switch for rudder and one for aileron and one for elevator. I just put them all on one switch. It's a lot simpler. So low rates, they say 70%. I don't usually turn the elevator down that far. I would use 75 or 80 myself. And then high rates 100, and then high rates 100. Notice there's no expo. I don't think they said to use expo. All right, so rudder, and it's a single rate, so we'll put it on B and switch B to low rate, and we'll set these to 70. So rudder is now 70 in low rates, 100 in high, and the other high. So that's dual rates. They didn't set it for you, even though they say to do it in the manual. So they kind of fell down on that one. Throttle cut, it's not set up. So I use switch H, and actually this should be, let's see if it resets to 100. Yes, it does. It should be minus 100. Minus 130 was the old days. They quit doing that. The newer firmware sets it to 100. Then another thing that I do, especially on propeller planes, is I turn on this switch right here that requires me to bring the throttle stick all the way to low and then advance it to make the motor run. If the throttle stick is at mid position, or if it's anywhere but idle, and you flip the throttle cut switch with this switch turned off right here, your motor's going to run. But with this enabled, your motor won't run until you bring the throttle stick down to low and then run it up. So you need to enable that. What else is on this screen? Nothing. Okay, so they didn't do throttle cut for you. Throttle curve's not needed. Now, flap system, because I changed the wing type, and you have to pick the switch when in the flap system. All right, so they say in the manual to set this to minus 100. And then they say to set this one to plus 100. And instead of using 0 here, I usually set it to about 25 with the same sign as flaps up. And the reason for that is that if you add 100 and 100, that's 200%. Divide that by 3, that's about 70. So if this is flaps up and this is flaps down and the flaps are 40 degrees, then 25 will get you about 15 degrees. You don't want half flaps on takeoff, because it would be more drag than lift. What you want is the lift without drag. So I set this to 25 with the same sign as flaps up. so that takeoff flaps is closer to flaps up than it is to full flaps. And then set the speed to 2 seconds. So that's how I'd set that. Now in the book, they tell you what mix to use, what percent for making the airplane descend at the proper speed. Some people think that these are to make the airplane fly level in each position of the flaps, but that's not the case. These are to set the glide speed of the plane with the motor off or throttle back. Um, these are not to prevent ballooning. In other words, when you lower the flaps, when you're going downwind and you got the motor running good, these are not to prevent the plane from climbing when you lower the flaps. These are to set the descent rate on approach to the runway so that it doesn't descend too steeply or not well. If you don't set the plane to descend some, it will get too slow and stall. So you want it to nose down a little bit when you lower the flaps, but not too much. You don't want it to dive at the runway, but you don't want to get it too slow. So, but I use the flight mode, and I probably shouldn't have moved that one, huh? That's the one I needed to put back to 0. Um, Instead of using these, I use flight mode trim. So anyway, so they didn't set the flaps up for you. They tell you how to do it in the manual, but they didn't do it in the config file that they provided. Mixing, there's no mixes, and the manual doesn't say to use any mixes. So I think they dropped the ball on their config file. Now, yeah, some of it is personal preference, and some people want to use switch C for rates instead of B, and so forth. They want to use switch A for flight modes in the receiver, safe mode, AS3X mode. But to me, A is for retracts, B is for rates, C is for the gyro, D is for flaps. I don't use E or F or G, but I use H for throttle cut. I've been flying Spectrum since 2008. I started with a DX7, and it changed my way of thinking on what switches need to be used for what. So anyway, that's basically how I set mine up. Okay, so now that we have the transmitter configured for the plane, we need to bind the airplane and go through some settings on it. So the next part, we'll do that.